Donald Trump recently appeared on the biggest podcast in the world, and even though Joe Rogan is a softball interviewer, there were many occasions where Rogan was visibly perplexed, confused, and amused by Donald Trump's ridiculousness, and Rogan even went so far as to defend Vice President Harris at one point when Trump tried to attack her. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, as you know, Donald Trump recently appeared on the Joe Rogan Experience. I am hoping that Vice President Harris is able to make it on, should her schedule permit. They were in negotiations, and reportedly, they couldn't make the schedule work. I hope she's able to do that, or at least send Governor Tim Walz to the Joe Rogan Experience, because whether we like it or not, it's the biggest podcast in the world, and this election is going to be decided on the margins. The more people see of Harris and Walz, the more they like them, which is the opposite experience for Trump and Vance. So in my opinion, this is a missed opportunity. I want to give you basically the highlight reel or low light reel, depending on your perspective, of Trump's disastrous appearance on the Joe Rogan podcast, as compiled by Vice President Harris's official Twitter page.
I lost by I didn't lose, but they say I lost, Joe, they say I lost by 22,000 votes. We could go into this stuff. We could go into the ballots, or we could go into the overall. I'll give you another one.
Are you going to present this ever? Do you think like?
Let me just give you one more before. That's your kind of
your
person.
weave is getting wide. We're getting wide with this weave.
But isn't it
I want to bring it back to tariffs.
But wait one second before we finish with tariffs.
What could you do now?
I cannot. I do not want to tell you. For the purpose of looking smart to 5 people that that say, "Oh, he was great." You know what it is? I want to be a whale psychiatrist. It drives the whales freaking crazy. I lost by
That's real. That's the former president of the United States. That's the 45th president of the United States. It may be the 47th president of the United States, which is really unsettling. But to go into a bit more detail of some of the crazy things Trump said, this is, again, the part where Donald Trump, as he has done a few times in the past few months, Donald Trump's mental decline actually gets to the better of his lies, and he'll occasionally let the truth slip out that he lost the 2020 election. Then he has to go back and clean it up. Here's that moment in more detail.
Because the ballots weren't signed. They weren't originals. We could go into this stuff. We could go into the ballots, or we could go into the overall. I'll give you another one.
Are you going to present this ever? Do you think like?
Let me just give you one more before, because
So again, that's Donald Trump still pervading this idea that the 2020 election was fraught with lies, when in fact it wasn't. Donald Trump, before the ballots were certified on January 6, 2021, there were 60 court cases, and Donald Trump lost all but one. Others were tossed out either on the merits or on standing. It was one legal defeat after another. And so he is still constantly relitigating the fact that he lost the election. Trump apologists say, oh, we're focused on the future, not the past. You're the ones who are obsessed with the 2020 election. No, not really. If Trump would just formally concede and stop talking about it, I imagine many people would be inclined to let it go, because most people, the rest of us included, don't want to rehash or relitigate the 2020 election. It's your stupid cult leader who just can't come to terms with the fact that he's not as popular as he thinks he is. He's never been a particularly popular or well-liked candidate, certainly not compared to his Democratic challengers. If he would just concede, yeah, I lost the election, but you know what, damn it, I'm going to win this one. Even that would be more acceptable than what Trump is doing. Trump himself is constantly stepping on rakes. And again, this is the moment, first clip should have been that, but this is the moment where Trump again admits that he lost the 2020 election and then has to course correct because he accidentally told the truth.
Right? They say that I don't believe it's this much, but it doesn't have to. I lost by I didn't lose, but they say I lost, Joe, they say I lost by 22,000 votes.
Well, you lost the popular vote by 7 million votes. In total, in terms of the Electoral College of swing states, you lost by about 44,000, depending on the particular count. But yeah, so Trump lost the Electoral College to President Biden by the same margin he beat Hillary Clinton in the 2016 election. And then by the popular vote, she beat him by 3 million votes, and President Biden beat him by 7 million. So it wasn't particularly close, but Trump is struggling with that. And note how Rogan is laughing at him to his face in real time. And even Trump is like, he's offended by the fact that Joe Rogan is laughing at his ridiculousness, at the lies of about the 2020 election. So he has to go, Joe, he has to like almost castigate him, almost has to, wag his finger like, don't interrupt me. Stop it. Stop making fun of me. Because, of course, we know reportedly that is the thing that Donald Trump hates above all else, to be made fun of, which is part of the reason, he went into politics really in the first place. Reportedly, during the White House Correspondents' Dinner under President Obama, one of them where Obama made fun of Donald Trump, who was in attendance. Trump did not like that. And that really was a major factor, major decision, or rather major impetus for Donald Trump's decision to enter politics and run in the Republican primary. Another example.
He was not bad, right? That guy.
Oh, he was phenomenal.
But that's your kind of
Your
person.
weave is getting wide. We're getting wide with this weave.
But isn't it
I want to bring it back to tariffs.
But wait one second. Before we finish with tariffs, they said, could you get him? We need.
So the weave, of course, is what Donald Trump refers to as his, penchant for non sequiturs and tangents and, these ridiculous asides and these sentence fragments. He's like, it's part of this rhetorical strategy. We start in one place, we go all the way around, I weave it all together. It's like a tapestry. He's not said tapestry to my knowledge. I think too many syllables. Excuse me, too many syllables for him. But yeah, it's so ridiculous that even Rogan's like, okay, I asked you a question on tariffs. Can we please get back to tariffs? And Donald Trump is clearly uncomfortable talking about tariffs and defending their merits to the extent that any merits exist, that he still wants to go off on these non sequiturs. Another example, and I think this one is when Donald Trump reflexively praises dictators.
Well, I also
we're dealing with the smartest people. They hate when I say, when I call President Xi, they said, he called President Xi brilliant. Well, he's a brilliant guy. He controls 1.4 billion people with an iron fist. I mean, he's a brilliant guy, whether you like it or not. And they go crazy.
Right. It doesn't mean he's not evil, or it doesn't mean he's not
of course not.
Dangerous.
But actually, we have evil people in our country.
Yes.
If you have a smart president, he can deal with Russia. He can deal with all of it. Russia would have never gone into Ukraine if I were president.
That could be because Putin felt that he had a close ally in the White House, that Trump was effectively giving him everything he wanted. But we don't know. There was a buildup during Trump's administration. There was a mass buildup preparing for the Ukraine invasion. But it could also be that that Putin didn't want to do it right then. Here's the other question. If Putin wants to invade Ukraine, and he also wants Trump to be president, which we know that's the case, and Trump is boasting about the good relationship he had with Putin. And, he also sent COVID tests and other things to Putin as well, when Americans, for that matter, millions of them were scrambling for these tests, desperate for them to save their lives and the lives of their loved ones and to avoid infection and death. So we have plenty of evidence, including much from Trump himself in Trump's own words, that he and Putin got along. So if Putin wants to invade Ukraine and Putin also prefers to deal with Trump and they had a good relationship, then how is it that Trump could have ever possibly deterred Putin from invading Ukraine if that's what Putin wanted to do? Right? Because if Putin wanted to invade Ukraine, then he would not want Trump to be president. He would be actively interfering to try to keep Trump out of the White House and would not talk about the good relationship he had with Trump, and Trump wouldn't be talking about either. He'd be like, oh, we had a terrible relationship because Putin fears me and because I intimidated Putin. Instead, what it suggests is that all their interests align. And that means if Trump really got along with Putin and Putin really wanted to invade Ukraine, then he would have eventually invaded on Trump's watch, perhaps in a second Trump term. But we don't know that because Trump wasn't given a second term, but he might now. Just none of the logic lines up. But that's Donald Trump for you. That's what he does. Every time, he makes an excuse, or every time, he tries to offer some sort of defense of his anemic record, he defends, he makes these points that actually don't withstand scrutiny and don't align with the other points that he's made. They're mutually exclusive. You either like Putin, got along with Putin, Putin like you, got along with you, or Putin never would have invaded Ukraine on his watch. If he wanted to invade Ukraine and if he liked you, you clearly were not an obstacle to invading Ukraine. It doesn't make sense. These propositions are mutually exclusive. Anyway, one last clip from Joe Rogan in which he actually defends Vice President Kamala Harris.
Show like this. Can you imagine Kamala doing this show?
I could imagine her doing this show.
She'd be laying on the floor.
She was supposed to do it, and she might still do it, and I hope she does.
She's not going to do it.
I will talk to her like a human being. I will try to have a conversation with her. If she did this kind of an interview with you, I hope she does, because it would be a mess. She'd be laying on the floor comatose. You'd be saying, call in the medics. I think we'd have a fine conversation. I think I'd be able to talk to her. I wouldn't try to interview her. I just try to have a conversation with her and hopefully get to know her as a human being. That was my goal, having her on, trying to get her to express herself just as I don't think these formats are good. I don't think that two people, first of all, I hate the idea of the presidential debates because I hate the idea of a time limitation on complex ideas. Also,
so there you go. Joe Rogan's like, no, actually, I think this would be a fine conversation. I think she'd do well here. We want to have her on. Now, again, reportedly, according to Ian Sams, who is a Kamala Harris surrogate, Joe Rogan's scheduling and their scheduling could not align for the past, or for the last 10 or so days of the election. I hope that they are able to get Harris on, or failing that, they send Governor Tim Walz instead as a surrogate, because I think he would even do, quite frankly, better than Harris is in that particular format with that particular demographic. But we'll see. As far as I'm concerned, this was, I don't see how this helps Trump personally. Again, the polls show, and history has shown, that the more people see of Trump, the less they like him. And Trump has never commanded a popular majority. Trump has never won the majority vote. Trump has never cracked 50% approval rating. This is a man who has always been pretty much underwater with respect to likability. And to see Joe Rogan be, again, visibly perplexed and laugh at him, when Trump's not even trying to be funny, Trump's trying to be serious. I won the door. It was stolen from me. And to be laughed at to the point where you have to, well, Joe, just stop laughing at me. It's pretty pathetic. So that's my take on it. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.